Released in 1997 for the PlayStation, Final Fantasy VII was a groundbreaking RPG that changed gaming forever. While everyone remembers iconic moments like Cloud, Sephiroth, and Aerith, the game also hid plenty of weird, forgotten, or surprising facts. Here are the 10 weird facts you didn't know. Before we dive into the strange secrets of Midgar, don't forget to like and subscribe for more retro gaming deep dives so you can relax, unwind, and rewind with us every week. Starting at number 10 is the platform hopping disaster. Final Fantasy VII began development in 1994 for the Super Nintendo, then jumped to Nintendo 64 testing before ultimately landing on PlayStation, making it the most expensive game of musical chairs in gaming history. Square literally built prototypes for 3 different consoles. When Squaresoft found out that the next generation Nintendo 64 disk drive would not be a CD-ROM system, but was going to be yet another cartridge-based system, they decided it was time to move on. The truly bizarre part is that every platform switch meant rebuilding core systems from scratch. Square spent nearly 2 years developing a game that technically never existed, creating what might be the most expensive video game graveyard in history. The SNES version would have been sprite-based, the N64 version would have been compressed to death, and the only PlayStation version gave us those legendary CGI sequences that still hold up today. Nintendo executives were reportedly furious when Square announced the PlayStation exclusive deal, creating a rift that lasted over a decade. One platform decision literally changed the trajectory of 2 gaming giants forever. At number 9 is the translation disaster that became internet gold. Long before All Your Base Are Belong to Us, Final Fantasy VII gave us This Guy Are Sick. A grammatical train wreck so spectacular it achieved immortality through sheer wrongness. The English localization team had 4 months to translate a script longer than most novels, working with incomplete context and 0 gameplay footage. They were essentially translating a movie they'd never seen, based on scattered notes written in a language they barely understood. Given the speed that we were working at, we couldn't check every single string in the English game. So, for sure, these facts would have led to some awkward phrasing in the translations, said Karen Fetzer, one of the translators. The weirdest part is that these translation errors became so beloved by fans that Square deliberately referenced them in later games. Poor grammar became part of Final Fantasy VII's DNA, proving that sometimes mistakes make better memories than perfection. At number 8 is the debug room that broke reality. Hidden in Final Fantasy VII's code is a secret developer room filled with test NPCs that say things no human should ever hear. And by hidden, I mean accidentally accessible through simple memory manipulation. This debug room contains NPCs with dialogue like, "Huh? You're not thinking of stepping on me, are you? I may be a floor, but that don't give you the right." It's so unhinged, the room itself looks like a glitched nightmare. Mismatched graphics, floating objects, and characters that shouldn't exist in the same space-time continuum. It's like walking into the developer's fever dreams. Interestingly, some of these test NPCs reference plot elements and characters that were cut from the final game. They're digital ghosts of a Final Fantasy VII that never was, trapped forever in a room nobody was supposed to see. Players discovered this room decades after release through ROM hacking and save file manipulation. Square never acknowledged its existence, making it feel like stumbling into gaming's equivalent of Area 51. And number 7 is the Honeybee Inn Secret Identity Crisis. The cross-dressing sequence at the Honeybee Inn wasn't just controversial for its content. It was a cut content catastrophe. Hidden in the game's data are unused dialogues and even flags revealing a far more elaborate and bizarre sequence than what players saw. Unused texts hint at alternate dress outcomes and extended interactions, suggesting Cloud could have had wilder encounters. Even stranger, cut NPC dialogues point to a recurring subplot where the Honeybee Inn played a much larger role in Wall Market's story. This means players have been experiencing a censored, simplified version of what the developers originally envisioned. The full creative vision was apparently too weird even for a game about fighting a silver-haired god with mommy issues. At number 6 is the Aerith death scene's devastating real-world inspiration. Hironobu Sakaguchi, Final Fantasy VII's director, was grieving his mother's death during the game's development. The loss hit him so hard that he channeled his experience of sudden, senseless loss directly into what became gaming's most traumatic moment. Sakaguchi has spoken about how he wanted players to experience the same shock and helplessness he felt. The way death arrives without warning, without fair play, without the chance to say goodbye properly. He also wanted to incorporate that feeling of a sense of loss in the game that would make the player feel such a heavy emotion. Of course, Square spent more development time on 30 seconds of character death than most games spend on entire levels. The scene was so technically complex that it required its own dedicated programmer who worked on nothing else for 3 months. Man, one person's full-time job was programming digital heartbreak with frame-perfect precision. At number 5 is Red 13's bigger planned role. Before Red 13 settled into his role as a party member, he was set to shine in a bigger Cosmo Canyon story arc, cut down by development constraints. Red 13 is something of a mystery. He's intelligent, articulate, and extremely likable, but we don't know all that much about him. Unused texts reveal extra dialogues and scenes in Cosmo Canyon, hinting at a deeper exploration of Red 13's backstory with more NPC interactions. The code also hides minor unused animations for Red 13, suggesting slightly different movements that never made the final cut. These remnants show Square planned a richer role for Red 13, but scrapped it to streamline the game, leaving fans to uncover echoes of his lost spotlight. At number 4 is the compression technology that bordered on wizardry. Final Fantasy VII's 3 CDs pack in movie-quality CGI cutscenes, 60 minutes of video squeezed into just 1.8 GB, a feat that seemed impossible for 1997. Square's proprietary compression, likely a custom MPEG-based codec, fit these massive FMVs onto PlayStation discs through sheer technical brilliance. The truly weird part is that the uncompressed source files for these cutscenes were likely larger than the entire game's final size, cramming an elephant into a matchbox. Scenes like Sephiroth Supernova pushed the PlayStation's limits. Square's engineers pulled off a digital miracle, making Cloud's spiky hair and apocalyptic battles fit on CDs, proving math could make miracles. At number 3 is the Pepsi campaign that brought Final Fantasy VII to real life. In 1997, Japanese McDonald's stayed out of the Final Fantasy VII craze, but Pepsi Japan teamed up with Square for a wild promotional campaign. Special edition cans featured Cloud, Sephiroth, and other characters, turning soda into a collectible piece of Midgar. Promotional materials hyped it as a way to taste the adventure, blending gaming with real-world marketing in a way that felt oddly transcendent. For a brief moment in 1997, you could literally drink Final Fantasy VII's vibe, blurring the line between Midgar and reality. How cool is that? At number 2 is the secret plot hints hidden in plain sight. Buried in Final Fantasy VII's code are dialogue files and plot flags that reveal an earlier, weirder version of the story, tweaked before release. Unused dialogue for Aerith in later areas like the Great Glacier and Midil, suggesting her death was decided late in development. Lines that play only if modders keep her alive. It gets stranger. Cut dialogues and flags hint at darker Sephiroth encounters, and scrapped side scenes like creepier moments in Wall Market that were toned down for the final game. These remnants show Square crafted a rougher, edgier Final Fantasy VII before polishing it into the iconic story we got, leaving fans to unearth the ghost of what might have been. And at number 1 is the Dummied content disaster that created accidental archaeology. Because Final Fantasy VII's development took place in such a short period, Square left massive amounts of unused data in the ROM rather than risk breaking their debug work by removing it. So of course this created a digital archaeological site where fans have spent decades uncovering buried secrets. The game contains entire unused enemy types, including Tonberry and Hochu, that were programmed, animated, and ready for battle, but cut from main encounters. There are complete dialogue trees for NPCs that don't exist in the final game, suggesting entire towns or scenarios that were cut during development. Fan hackers have found unused music tracks, complete with full orchestration, that never play during the game. Nobuo Uematsu composed entire symphonies that were buried in the code, like digital fossils, waiting 25 years to be heard by human ears. Modern data miners are still finding new content hidden in Final Fantasy VII's code, making it less of a finished game and more of an active archaeological dig into gaming history. Final Fantasy VII wasn't just a classic. It was a treasure chest of strange decisions, hidden gems, and wild stories that kept fans digging decades later. Which of these facts shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more retro gaming history so you can relax, unwind, and rewind with us.